Friends, it's Everything Mayer, your favorite John Mayer fan podcast. If you're new here, my name is Tom Butwin, your host. If you are returning, I sincerely appreciate your support. Consider subscribing. In either case, we are also available on every podcasting platform. If you want to go the extra mile, become a member of the YouTube channel. And I'll tease it. We've got an amazing interview coming up with Paul Reed Smith. It is available to members right now in its unedited, raw form. So if that's interesting to you and you have not done so yet, please consider becoming a member of the channel. Today, we are going to talk about what I would consider to be, I think it was John Mayer's best interview so far on How's Life with John Mayer, Maggie Rogers. I thought it was fascinating. I've enjoyed all of them, but you know what? Maybe this one I enjoyed the most because I knew the least about the interviewee, Maggie Rogers. And I was super excited to go dig into more of her music after hearing the interview. And I really liked it. So I'm very thankful for that. It's awesome. I loved it. I also thought it was really cool. And John mentioned this in the interview, is that she wasn't really there to promote anything. She's in the midst of creating. And I think that's a really cool place to interview somebody. Maybe someone can do that with John as he's creating. I'm just saying. So the main topic for today's show is a very interesting part of the interview in which Maggie flips the script and asks John a question. And I think it's a very interesting question. It's a question I've tried to answer from a fan perspective. I'm sure it's a question you've tried to answer from a fan perspective as well, which is, what's his best album? Can you rank them? I have ranked them. Once the 9th studio album comes out, I got to redo that video, of course, because every time you get a new piece of work from an artist, it might make you reconsider where you rank it in their whole catalog if you're into those sorts of things. But what's interesting, and you'll hear, we got a clip from John Mayer here in just a second where he actually answers this question. He tells us what he thinks his best record is, or records. And in part of that explanation, he explains that he thinks people take about 5 years to really get into an album. And I can attest, as someone I have been a John Mayer fan since the Eddie's Attic bootleg days, pre-Room for Squares. I can tell you, and I'm not ashamed to admit, that it took me a while to get Born and Raised. I didn't get it. And it took me even longer to get Paradise Valley. That whole era, I wasn't prepared for it. It wasn't music that I was interested in at the time. If Born and Raised came out today, where my musical tastes are, I think that I would be much quicker to adopt it. But at the time, it took, honestly, probably about 5 years, 5-6 years. So I think he's onto something there, that things take a little while to marinate. Now, I don't think that's necessarily true with all of his albums. I feel like pretty much everyone knew Continuum was a spectacular effort from him right off the bat. So I remember hearing Waiting on the World to Change for the first time. I remember exactly where I was. I remember what road I was on, what direction I was driving, and it came on the radio, and the opening, the drums, I was like, what is this? What is this from Mayer? Because it was absolutely a different thing than what he had been doing. So without further ado, though, let's go, and I want to hear what John Mayer has to say as far as his own opinion on his best work when it comes to an album, and we shall discuss afterwards.
What do you think is the best record you've made?
This is interesting. It's either, there's three that I think about, and it's people say Continuum.
Mm-hmm.
I had the most fun I had the most life making Continuum. My life was so vivid and so great, and I was discovering so much. Born and Raised is the most accomplished kind of as a piece of work, I feel like, for me. And I think someday people will kind of look at Saabrock as a world-building adventure.
So he goes on to say, for some reason, my records take 5 years to to get to people. Now, okay, I don't think any of us are going to be surprised with the first two. I think when you look at his entire career, Continuum and Born and Raised are the two albums that, if you had any doubt that John Mayer should be on the this generation's Mount Rushmore of songwriters, not guitar players, songwriters, those two records would tell you that you need to put him in that category. So the third one, though, this is very interesting to me that he mentioned Saabrock. Now, I was just having a discussion with Loretta, one of our listeners, subscribers, loyal members, about Saabrock, and she was sort of like, attempting to have a friend dig into the John Mayer catalog for the first time, it sounded like. And the topic of Saabrock, we both agreed, was it the fact that 3 or 4 of the songs had been released, 3 had been released as singles prior to, and it felt maybe that section of the record was disjointed for that reason. I find it very interesting that he put Saabrock in there. And I wonder, if... This is a question I wish I had asked John when I met him, but I didn't have the mental wherewithal to come up with something as put together and well thought out as this. But if I ever get the chance again, I would ask him, how does he look at Saabrock? Does he look at it like a Born and Raised or Continuum? Both of those records, which were made, it felt like more at the same time, front to back. And Saabrock is disjointed. It absolutely is, because you have New Light, Carry Me Away, which were released long before. I guess I just feel like to a lesser extent, but still before. And then, people lump in Last Train Home because it was the single that came out before the record, but I don't count that because that's normal with a record. But there were 3 songs that were, I would argue, existed really well on their own. New Light, huge hit, really cool. Didn't need to be on a record. Carry Me Away, it's actually one of my favorite songs he's ever done, particularly the new version on Saabrock. And then I guess I just feel like has become this live guitar solo vehicle that was just unbelievable. It gave us the tap bend riff that all us guitar players loved. But if I would want to ask him, is he referring to Saabrock as this collection of songs sans those 3? Because when you look at the other 7, I think that they are much more conjoined together. It feels like they're more congealed to a certain extent. And then the other 3, they fit. I think it works as a record, but I do think maybe there is a practical reason for putting those 3 songs on the record. So I would want to know that. Does he look at it as more like something maybe like an EP length thing? But I find it very interesting that he puts it in as one of his best pieces of work, because actually I agree with him on that. I think it's really cool. There's some great songs on that record. There's some great guitar playing on that record. I think he had a vision, and I think, certainly probably tied with Born and Raised for the total package, both the visual, the aesthetic on stage, the whole vibe, merch, music videos, all of it. When you look at Born and Raised and you look at Saabrock, it's this complete total package. If you've listened to Saabrock on Spotify, the animations are cassette. It looks like a cassette player, and it's so cool because as you go through the album, you can actually see the tape rolling from one spool to the other. It is so well thought out that I don't think it matters that 3 of the songs were released prior to and probably recorded in a different headspace than the other 7 were. So interesting. Now I want to know, if you put yourself in John Mayer's shoes, how would you answer that question? We'll give you 3. Maggie Rogers said, "What's your best record?" But he answered with 3. Here's what my answer would be. I would have to say, and these are in no particular order, but I am going to put one at number 1 for myself, and that is The Search for Everything. That is my all-time, hands down, favorite John Mayer record thus far. In no particular order after that, I would say Continuum and... tough one, but probably a tie between Born and Raised and Saabrock. For recency bias, I'm going to put Saabrock in there, because I got to tell you, 4 years in, I'm still not sick of Last Train Home. I'm still not sick of it. anytime I hear that drum intro, I'm listening to the whole song every single time. I've talked about this with my friend Silver Sky Guy. Everybody's getting shout outs in this episode, by the way. The Mayer community is amazing. I've met so many cool people through doing this. So, but he and I have talked about it. We're like, I'm still not sick of it. I'm still not sick of it. And, obviously the ballad version helps as well. So very interesting, I think. I wasn't expecting that tidbit. I was so excited when I was listening to the interview when Maggie Rogers turned the tables and asked that question. I was like, oh, here we go. Here we go. We're going to get something really cool to talk about and just know about what John thinks of his own work. Now, the other interesting part to the interview, and I'm going to do another shout out. Why not? Mimi, we talked about this. We got a little insight into John's realization. I'm not going to say inspiration, but realization about the song Walt Grace, in that, who Walt Grace was and what he was writing about. Started as a fictional character. Really cool song. If you're listening to this and you haven't heard Walt Grace, please go listen to it. And then leave me a comment below, because I would be fascinated to know what someone hearing that song for the first time feels and hears. But if you haven't heard it, or maybe you haven't listened to it in a while, go back and listen to it, because in that same interview, John mentions that later on in life, he realized he was writing about his dad, which is really cool. I mean, Richard Mayer is sort of, when you're in this super fan circle, you absolutely know of John Mayer's father. Obviously, he's referenced in songs. You've seen, if you deep dove on the internet, you've seen John bring him out on stage and asked him, I think it was Red Rocks, where he said, "Hey Dad, what's your favorite song? What do you want me to play?" Or maybe it was Madison Square Garden. It might have been that. But I do believe he asked for "Stop This Train," which makes sense. But so he's kind of this fixture in the Mayer verse, which is super cool. And listening to that song, Walt Grace, it's really, it hit, as the kids say, it hits different after learning of John Mayer's realization of his own inspiration on that song. That really, it didn't sound like he was aware of that at the time of writing it. So super cool on that as well. Now, the applause means if you're new here and you've made it this far, feel free to join this club. This is called the After Dinner Mint. And this is the portion of the show where I care less about the YouTube algorithm and retaining your attention to hopefully boost the reach of this video. And we just talk OG Everything Mayer fan to OG Everything Mayer host, me. So I alluded at the beginning of this that there is an interview I'm really happy with and really proud of, and I hope that this is a sign of things to come. But I sat down, I had the honor and privilege to sit down with Paul Reed Smith. Now, if you're not familiar with Paul Reed Smith, he is a guitar maker based in Maryland. Paul Reed Smith guitars have been just the greatest to me in everything that I do on YouTube, on my own channel, through Premier Guitar, and on this channel. They are awesome. Everyone there, and I don't get paid by them, so I don't have to say this. So I will tell you straight up, they are some of the best people I've met doing this. It's just phenomenal crew over there, so helpful, so supportive. And they made my request. I was going to be in town for a gig, and my request of interviewing Paul for this show, Eric and the team over there made it happen. It was super fun. If you've ever heard Paul Reed Smith in an interview before, you know that it is a blank canvas and it is a wild ride. I had questions planned. I got some of them in, but he really drives the bus, which is really great, honestly, for somebody like me who's not a professional interviewer and is learning as he goes. So if you are interested in hearing that in its uncut form, it is on the members section of the channel right now. You can join if you haven't yet at the born and raised level. There are 2 levels to be able to hear that interview. It will come out as an episode soon, though there are going to be some parts removed from it, just so you know. So if you want the unedited version, it's on there right now. If you want to wait for it to come out on the channel, no problem with that either. But it was super fun. We got some behind the scenes stuff, got some insight. We talk about the PRS 40th anniversary event where I met John Mayer and that whole story. If you don't know that story, go check out my video on that. It will blow your mind. It's still blowing mine every day. But yeah, really cool. As far as housekeeping goes, I've got some ideas for videos, excuse me, videos and episodes that aren't going to be necessarily driven by like current mayor events, but I think they're really cool discussion topic points. And if you are a member, please feel free to, throw a comment or something on a members only video if you have a suggestion for a topic. But I've got some interesting ones coming up. If you've listened this far, you know what? I'll give you some previews of what I'm thinking about doing and what I've got in the planning, in the works. We're going to do, I think 10. We'll do like the top 10 Grateful Dead songs for the John Mayer fan. And it's going to be a list that we've curated to maybe help bridge the gap for some of you who don't get the Dead and Company thing. So these are songs that if you haven't listened to, particularly Dead and Company's versions with John on them, this is not like a Grateful Dead primer course, but it's going to be songs that I think Mayer does with Dead and Company, which for the most part will be Grateful Dead covers, maybe a couple that aren't. But that would be the best place to start if you are a John Mayer fan. So we're going to do that. I got a video working on right now called, I'm not going to give away what this is about, but this is what everyone has gotten wrong about John Mayer in the last 10 years. So we're going to talk about that. Let's see what else. We've done some show reactions before where we watch like older videos, and I want to do some more of those. Those are a ton of fun. They tend to get flagged for copyright on YouTube, so I don't do them too often, but they're a ton of fun. So I might do a few of those as well. With that, that's the theme. That's the Everything Mayer theme. That's me playing guitar on it. Super fun. It's, I guess I just feel like inspired, but it's good to be back. As I've said in previous recent episodes, we are sort of in a holding pattern here because when the new album cycle kicks off, that is when we're full throttle on this show. Hopefully I get some insider info so I can clear my schedule. We're coming up on a busy fall, a bunch of live performances with John and the band. I'm sure shortly thereafter some new music, and it's going to be a ton of fun to dig into it and experience it with you all here on Everything Mayer. Once again, just radio people out there, just nailed the ending right there.